As we headed back to the water, we stopped to enjoy the view of the Port Sanilac Lighthouse. The octagon hourglass-shaped tower near its top is made of tiered, reverse stair-stepped brick. It is 14 feet in diameter at its base and tapers vertically to 9 feet in diameter below the gallery. The placement and the unique shape were dedicated and created because of a budgetary constraint when Congress appropriated only half the money requested. Designed by 11th District Engineer Captain Charles E.L.B. Davis, the design has been called both unique and architecturally significant in its elegance. The tower is white with a red roof. The handsome lighthouse shares its design with only one other light located on Lake Michigan. The Port Sanilac Light Tower is capped with a cast iron lantern room, which still houses the 4th order Fresnel lens. The lens and its brass reflector send the light out in a 300-degree arc across the lake. This is only one of 70 Fresnel lenses that are still operational in the United States, 16 of which are used on the Great Lakes, of which 8 are in Michigan. The lighthouse is still an active aid to navigation, but is now privately owned. There is a public access pier that stretches out into the lake right next to the tower, so viewing is not a problem.
And originally belonged to the Thompson steamship lines, and there was a steamship dock off of this property until they started construction. Thompson sold the property to the U.S. government, and they finished construction on the lighthouse in 1886. The first keeper was a man named Richard Morris, and the interesting story about the keepers is they were all from the same family. Morris and the next keeper, Holmes, were both married to sisters, and their family name was Sinclair. They were like the head keeper down at the Fort Gratiot Light and also at Thunder Bay. So quite a story about lighthouse families and the life-saving service and all that kind of information. The original light burned oil, of course, and was a constant white light, and they would shut it off come October because the shipping shut down for the winter. And then they started it back up again in the springtime. One of the biggest stories in this area was the storm of 1913. It's pretty well known that the ships that sank off of here were actually blown south past town, and there are stories of hearing whistles blowing, but at that point you were talking about sustained 90-mile-an-hour winds. One of the things that we like to talk to the kids about at the museum is the size of these ships that were actually turned over. They were almost brand new steel ships that were built, you say 1908, 1913, were turned over. They were 750 feet long, and if you ever stood on a freighter on the deck, you feel like you're towering over the water. They're just huge. And to imagine that a storm would flip one of these over, and those were the big ones. And there were several of them that went down. There were ocean-going ships that were sunk during that storm. But we know 2 of them, the Price and the Regina, went right past here during the storm, but of course there was nothing anybody could do about it. As you can imagine, there are people going by here all the time to take a look at the lighthouse, take pictures of it, whether they're in a tour group. We get people come in RV groups, and there's 12, 20 of them at a time that come and they tour and look at all the lighthouses on the lakes. Or we just get people coming to take pictures and see the lighthouse there as an individual. There's plenty of picture-taking opportunities here, whether you're doing video or still photography. And it really doesn't matter what season you're here. Anything from spring to winter. Summer's always nice, but you're talking about a lighthouse on the lake. You can take a picture any day you want. It's a good picture.